Welcome back to the Institute for Swedenborg Studies at Bryn Athyn College. I'm Professor Grant Schnarr, and this course is The Afterlife. This session is about the layout of heaven. Speaking about the layout of heaven, we're going to be talking about different things. One is the levels of heaven. Paul talks about the levels of heaven in the New Testament. Also, we're going to talk about communities in heaven, and also how heaven looks in the Lord's eyes. But first, I want to talk about those levels, okay? So here's a passage from the work Heaven and Hell, paragraph number 31. The divine nature that flows from the Lord and is accepted in the third or central heaven is called heavenly, and the angels there are consequently called heavenly angels. I want to say in older translations, they're called celestial angels in celestial heaven. The divine nature that flows from the Lord and is accepted in the second or intermediate heaven is called spiritual, and the angels there are consequently called spiritual angels. The divine nature, though, that flows from the Lord and is accepted in the outmost or first heaven is called natural. However, the natural of that heaven is not like the natural of our world, but has something spiritually and heavenly within it. Again, Heaven and Hell, paragraph 31. Now, there's another passage here from Heaven and Hell I'd like to read to you as well, very short. It needs to be quite clear that it is the inner nature of angels that determines which heaven they are in. The more the deeper levels have been opened, the more inward the heaven they are in. And that's Heaven and Hell 33. So that just goes on to say that the reason these angels are in these deeper levels is because of their nature, how much they are accepting the Lord on the inside. Now, I really want to focus on these because it is important. It's a major part of Swedenborg's work to talk about these levels of heaven. Now, the levels are, I'm going to use the word celestial, all right? Because I tell you what, let me just write this down first. Spiritual, celestial, spiritual. I don't know if you guys can actually see this. I hope so. And natural. All right. So what I was going to say was the celestial heaven. I call it celestial because if you call it heavenly, it just seems confusing to me. I mean, okay, so the heavenly heaven is this, and the spiritual heaven is that. And I think that's why if you look at the older translations of Swedenborg, instead of saying the heavenly heavens, it always says celestial. Just as a little easier to differentiate what's being talked about there. Anyway, so the celestial heaven is the highest or most interior heaven, then the spiritual, and then the natural heaven. So in other words, the more you go up on this list here, the closer you are to the Lord. The celestial angels are closer, the spiritual angels are a little less close, and the natural angels even less. And I think that might bother some people. Occasionally I'll get a student that says, wait, aren't we all equal in heaven? And I say, do you think there are people in this room that are closer to the Lord than other people? And they'll go, yeah. Well, that's all that's happening in heaven. That's all we're talking about is how open are you to the Lord? I mean, geographically, spiritually speaking, you're closer if you're closer, okay? So anyway, I wanted to talk about, well, what are these different states? What are these angels like? Now, in the celestial heaven, I would call them, and this is my words, but perceivers. Perceivers, they perceive what is right. They don't need to think about it. They don't need to try to work it out. They just know. They know, okay, this is the right thing to do. They just know, how to love people. They don't have to work it out. They just do it. In other words, besides being perceivers, you could say they are in the zone. I love using that phrase with the college students because a lot of college students are involved in athletics and they kind of get, oh yeah, I know what in the zone means. Just like, when you really got it down. As a hockey player, I always share with them in college, those times where I found myself in the zone, right down there and, scored that goal. Didn't happen very often, but when it did, I could say to you, I was in the zone. And I think in a lot of sports, you get that. It's just when everything is working for you. You don't have to think about it anymore. It just happens. You're right there. But that comes from a lot of hard work, as we'll see. Spiritual angels are they're thinkers. Or they are motivated by a love of learning. Now, I know that's really small. They're thinkers motivated by a love of learning. They actually, and if you move down a notch, you can see not everybody does perceive, this is what's right, this is what's good, this is where I should be going. They're just, maybe not in the zone. You have to really think it out. What do I believe? What are the steps that I need to take to live a better life? What is heaven life like? I have not really thought about it. Or what does it feel like? There's a lot of thinking, a lot of discussion about it, a lot of work to be done. Now, what I like to think about is if you're moving up the ladder here, is that it always starts out, in the spiritual realm. In any sport, you got to think out, you got to learn how to play. You got to learn how to play. And so it's once you've learned how to play and you've practiced, you get more and more into it, so you don't have to think about it anymore. You just do it. So in other words, one of the things like I talk about is, because it really, I don't play golf that much anymore because it's so complicated. But in a golf swing, there are so many, things to remember: the position of your legs, how you're going to hold the club, the focus down the fairway. How do you do the swing? There's a million things to remember. So that's like right here in the spiritual. You're thinking it all out. How do you do it? How do I get this shot all together? And it's clumsy at first, but after a while you get it. Well, if you look at the pros, they don't need to go there anymore with thinking about the whole thing. It is so ingrained in them. Yes, there are those things that they calculate, but they go up, they know the position to go in, and they're ready to go up and to, hit that ball straight down the fairway and make that shot. It just happens for them. The more you practice, the better you are. Same in heaven. Okay? So there are, we go through a stage where we have to think it out, but after a while, with the practice and all that, we come right into it. Well, what about the natural heaven? It's a step lower. What Swedenborg says, in heaven, it's a love of obedience. Now, can I just put this down here? Tell me what to do, and I'll do it. That's the bottom line, I guess you would say, in heaven. It's the bottom line. Just tell me what to do. I don't need to think it all out. I don't need to become some, Gandhi or Mother Teresa or whatever. Just tell me what to do, follow the commandments, whatever, and I'll do it. That's all. I don't need to go any further. I don't want to go any further. I'm a simple person. And, those are the people, they're good people. They go into heaven, right? They're opening themselves up to the Lord, obeying the commandments, trying to do the best they can. They don't want to learn more. They don't want to move way up on a ladder. They just want to be simple and just get the job done. That's enough. The Lord accepts them into heaven, or they accept heaven into themselves through that attitude of obedience. Tell me what to do. Now, again, if you want to go back to sports or whatever, isn't that the first step? Coach, tell me what to do. Show me how to play. I have no idea. And so you have somebody that's actually there, leading you, teaching you, getting you to own it. In a way, it's an obedience. And then you start moving up again through that, thinking about it, practicing it, learning it until you're in the zone. So what I'm trying to show you is that, yes, there are these levels in heaven, these very distinct levels, but they're also levels of our own growth. So we all start out here at the bottom in the natural of I just need to know what to do. Tell me what to do. And if we continue to grow, we come more and more into a love of learning and wanting to know, what is it, on a deeper level? Why am I here? How can I serve better? Or where am I going when I die? That kind of thing. And then from there, moving from just love of learning into really just being in the zone of being a loving, good, perceptive person who is walking the talk. So these are the levels of heaven.